What's up, everybody? This is Apocalypse Movies. I'm Jacob Bartley, and I'm here to do a rewatch review, the video version, for Spider-Man 3, a comic book film that came out over a decade ago, which is crazy to say. I can't believe it was that long ago. I was in high school when this movie came out. That's insane. And the reason why I'm reviewing Spider-Man 3 in the first place is because it was the first live-action time that we got Venom on screen. It was the first iteration of Venom in live action, and a lot of people like myself were so excited to see this, and a lot of people like myself kind of ended up disappointed by this movie back when it came out. And I will say, look, I was in 10th grade, and I have a story behind Spider-Man 3. It's one of the movies that I have a kind of crazy, funny, tragic story behind, in a way. At the time when this movie was coming out, I was in 10th grade. I rallied all my friends to go see it. And most of them, they like superhero movies, but they're not into it like I was, right? And I love Spider-Man, my favorite superhero. So I get everybody to go. Everybody's all excited. I get 10 of my friends to go, and we go. And back then I didn't know what a bad movie was. I wasn't able to process it like I do now. I wasn't able to, see what made bad filmmaking and good filmmaking. All I knew was when I left that theater and, going forward, watching it at home and stuff like that, I was very upset with a lot of decisions made in this film, mostly around Peter Parker walking down the sidewalk and dancing on tabletops and bars. Those were the things that kind of upset me, and they felt so off from the first movie, and I was able to tell that as a 15-year-old. So now, of course, I've seen this movie multiple times, probably a dozen times throughout my life at least. But I have not seen it in years. And seeing it now in the state of mind that I am in is a lot different. I've been reviewing films for a few years now, and I look at movies differently. So I just went into this okay, obviously I'm a fan of Spider-Man, and there's things that are guilty pleasures of mine within this film. But I kind of just tried to look at it as the state of mind I am in now, like I said, and it's just a bad movie. It is. And I'm glad I'm able to clarify that with my 15-year-old self. So, first of all, I love Tobey Maguire in the first two Spider-Man movies. I think he was great for the time the Spider-Man movies came out. But he plays this hunky-dory type Spider-Man, and he almost feels and this is also right for the time, but the Christopher Reeve Superman, goody tissues, oh golly, it feels like that, and that's the kind of Peter Parker that Tobey Maguire was playing, and I don't blame Tobey Maguire. He was probably asked to play that, and he was like that to a certain extent in the first two Spider-Man movies, but this movie took it to a whole nother level. All those times when the bands are cheering for him, and everybody's yelling, Spidey, Spidey, Spidey. And he's like, oh, they love me. What? It was unrealistic. The way he's acting, nobody acts like that. I believed the awkwardness in the first two movies. That was believable, and I felt like he was playing what he was asked to do, but correctly, and it was good. In the third one, that Gali type character, he played it terribly, but also I do not blame him fully because that's what he was asked to do. One of my strong points of the whole trilogy, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy, and in this movie is James Franco. I think his performance as Harry Osborn is great. I think back when I didn't know who James Franco was, he was a great character and one of the standouts in the movies. And I like his character in this movie as well. And it really just depends where you look at it. I like his character when he wants to get revenge on Spider-Man, and he's doing it that's what he really wants to do, and it's continuing on from the first two movies. It's building that, and he has resentment towards Peter because of Mary Jane, right? So I like that element, but the part of Harry Osborn's character that gets bad, in my opinion, in this film is when they have him lose his memory, and then he starts to be I don't remember anything, and then everything's all good. And how much of a douche is Peter in this movie? I mean, he's a douche throughout most of the movie, but Peter like lets Harry go through thinking that nothing happened, that like everything's okay. And even though it would have meant that Harry would have been mad at him, the right thing to do would be for Peter to tell Harry what's really going on. But one could argue that, like, you know, Peter's kind of losing his mind throughout this whole movie, and that has mostly to do with the Venom, the symbiote. So, I mean, kind of makes sense. He's not himself for most of this movie. But speaking of the symbiote, one of the biggest flaws of this movie, and I think it's universally agreed upon, is how they tried to tackle 3 villains in one film. Now, an argument could be made that they were setting up the Harry Osborn villain throughout the first 2 movies, which is true, but the majority of him actually being a villain is in this movie. The Venom symbiote is not really a villain until it starts to take over Peter Parker and until it consumes Eddie Brock. So then you have the Sandman character, which here's what after watching this movie again, here's what I think they should have done. They should have made it, there should have been no Venom in this movie. No Venom in this movie. I'm not saying the Venom character overall was terrible, but if the 3 villains in the movie are too much, and maybe you had to pull out one thing to make this a better film, I think taking out the Venom character or the Venom presence would have made this movie a better movie. And I think the Sandman part is actually pretty good. I like the Sandman villain. He didn't mean to kill Ben Parker. He's kind of a victim in his own right, and it was just an accident, and he's just pleading for forgiveness and trying to save his daughter. That was a great villain setup in my opinion. And honestly, I think the Sandman stuff, like when he's fighting in the city and like raising and growing big, I think that looks pretty cool. Like, out of all the things in this movie, Sandman might be the best villain in this movie, honestly, because he's not really a bad guy. He's just caught up in a wrong situation and he's trying to do the right thing. And in doing so, he gets brought into being a bad guy. So I think that was a thing they should have focused on even more. You could have tied this trilogy together perfectly by having this ongoing thing carrying on from the first film of Uncle Ben being killed. I thought that was great. I liked when Peter was just angry because of Uncle Ben, not angry because of Uncle Ben mixed with the Venom symbiote. I know that elevated it, but I still think they could have just focused on that angle, and he kind of lost himself and still goes out and kills Sandman, or thinks he kills Sandman out of anger for Uncle Ben, but then Sandman obviously comes back because water doesn't kill him, it just harms him severely. So I think you still could have had the James Franco character, Harry Osborn, still want vengeance on Peter. You could have had that same thing, and they both have to fight Sandman at the end, because Sandman is a powerful enough villain for them two to have to take on themselves. Peter can't do much to Sandman when Sandman is big. I mean, he can try to somehow get like a fire hose or something like that, but it was really Harry and his technology that was able to take Sandman down. So you could have had the same exact movie, no Venom corrupting Peter, no Venom at the end of the movie, no Eddie Brock, and you could have had just Sandman and Harry Osborn as the adversaries, and then they have eventually the same thing happens where Harry realizes that Peter wasn't responsible for his father's death, and they take on the Sandman together. I think that would have been a lot better of a movie, honestly. So the Venom and the Eddie Brock character. Look, I'm a Topher Grace apologist. I like Topher Grace. Did I say Grace? I don't know what I said. I'm a Topher Grace apologist. I like Topher Grace. I was a huge That 70s Show fan growing up. And I thought he could have been a good Eddie Brock, honestly. But the character was not written great dialogue for. The character was not, directed well. And because of that direction, he was performed badly. And part of me almost thinks that Sam Raimi purposefully made a bad movie because Sony didn't listen to him, and they forced him to put Venom in this movie. And he wanted Vulture for this movie, but they forced him to put Venom in. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go ahead and read up about it. It's that was the word around town, is that's what he wanted, and they forced him to put Venom in the movie, which I'm not saying that he really did do it on purpose, but hey, look at the movie and compared to the other movies, like, come on, it feels totally different. But for me, overall, Spider-Man 3 is still a bad film. It is. There's redeeming qualities about it. Like I said, the Peter and Harry relationship and them going back and forth. The Sandman character is great, honestly. That could have been the main villain of Spider-Man 3, and I would have been totally fine with that. There's certain other aspects. The action is great. I forgot to talk about the action. The action is still really cool. And you might watch it now and say, oh, this is outdated and this doesn't look that good. But you got to consider it for the time that it came out in. And the action is actually really good for this time era. I love the fight between Peter and Harry, and Peter just in his regular clothes and he's swinging around town as Peter Parker. Like, that was pretty cool. And it's funny because there's several times where he's out like as Peter Parker or has a Spider-Man suit on without his mask, and somebody could have totally seen him. Like, Peter Parker should have been found out in this movie, honestly, like to the public as Spider-Man, because he's like standing out there not far behind the crowd during that parade thing, and like just without a mask. Somebody with a camera could have easily seen him taking a picture. I actually really liked Bryce Dallas Howard as Gwen Stacy. I thought that was a pretty cool dynamic. I like her dynamic with Peter and how it kind of caused trouble for Mary Jane, because obviously like Peter Parker is out of Mary Jane is out of Peter Parker's league, and to see like another beautiful woman come to place and they're like fighting over this traditionally non-attractive guy who's like kind of nerdy, like I think that was pretty cool and funny. But like I said, the action is great. The action between Spider-Man and Sandman. I even like the action with Venom, and I like the look of Venom, like when he's not opening the face to show Topher Grace's face, like just Venom. I liked that look, honestly. And come on, who doesn't love that black Spider-Man suit? That's a redeeming quality in this movie. Even though it's just like a costume, it is a redeeming quality in this movie. But yeah, the action throughout, like the end battle scene, it's really cool. Like, imagine, just that was like the biggest fight we probably had, other than maybe an X-Men movie at the time, for like a big superhero battle at the end of a film. So I appreciated it back then. I appreciate it now for the time era. But overall, like I said, it's still not a good movie. And the Venom character is the focus here, because I'm watching this movie because Venom's coming out this weekend, and I'm super excited for Venom. And like I said, the Eddie Brock character in Spider-Man 3 is not a good character. The Venom was an unnecessary presence in this movie. I hope Venom is good. Venom 2018 is good. I'm rooting for it. I have tickets for Friday night. Cannot wait. And look out for our spoilers reviews on those. We'll do a spoiler review and a spoiler discussion on that. But anyways, those are my thoughts on Spider-Man 3, my rewatch review. Man, it was so cool to go back and watch this movie. It kind of just took me down a trip of memory lane, like back when I rallied all my friends to go see it. And it just reminded me, like, damn, I've loved these superhero movies for a long time, even though it was crazy how, like, I acknowledged this as a bad movie back then, when I normally, like, back then I kind of was very forgiving. Like, I loved the Fantastic Four movies when I was a kid. I loved even, like, X-Men United when I was a kid. But, like, there was something wrong about this movie for me, and I had a big problem with this movie back when I was younger, and I'm just glad I'm able to clarify that now as an adult. Well, that's going to do it. I am Jacob Bartley for Apocalypse Movies. Let me know in the comment section what you think of Spider-Man 3. Do you like it? Did you like it when it first came out? Does it hold up? If you did, do you hate it? Do you think it sucks still? Kind of like I just said, it kind of sucks. What are your redeeming qualities of Spider-Man 3? I really want to know. And most importantly, regarding Venom, what did you think of Venom in Spider-Man 3? And are you excited for Venom coming out this weekend? Let us know in the comment section. Thank you all for watching this review. I will see you guys next time.